bunch of Nevada judges.
Our Nevada judges.
I'm just kidding.
Our
I'm giving
Nevada judges.
it a hard time. All right, go ahead.
For page 20.
Yep.
Dosch.
Okay.
Dosch,
I know.
come on in.
That would be weird if it was like 20 judges.
Right?
in the courtroom.
A little nerve-wracking.
It'd be kind of fun.
Holding back.
Good afternoon. This is the guardianship of Garrett Dosch, 99G020357. Counsel, your appearances for the record. Can we start with Ms. Brickfield?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Elizabeth Brickfield, 6236. I'm the guardian ad litem for Garrett Dosch.
I'm sorry, Ms. Goldsmith. I just totally. Go ahead.
No, fine. I was hiding behind the screen. Dara Goldsmith, bar number 4270, along with my clients Melodie and Travis Dosch.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. James Berchtold, Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, bar number 5874, here on behalf of Garrett Dosch, who's with me today.
Hi, Garrett. How are you? Good to see you.
Lynn Hughes, bar number 6349, on behalf of Edis Dosch, who's with, I'm going to mess up my apologies.
Thank you. Everybody have a seat. We were last here on January 14th. It looks like since then I saw a supplement to the objection. Was there anything else filed since that date?
The
No, Your Honor, the only thing I filed was if you.
I'm sorry, joinder.
The only thing that I filed was, if you recall, you asked that we go back to Dr. Brown and Dr. Kinsora, and so I filed their reports to you, which had been shared with counsel
everyone,
last
right.
week.
And they're kind of opposed.
On a housekeeping matter, before we go any further, Your Honor, I did learn from Dr. Brown that he has not been paid in full. And so I just wanted to, I don't know how it happened, but I have the bill, he's owed about $3,900. And so if we could,
Can you email it to me?
I will turn it over to you and email it to you so we can get it paid.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, counsel. I was expecting some amended documents from you. Mr. Hughes?
Yes, Your Honor. We had what I think was a productive sit-down last week.
How did that go?
All council, it went the afternoon last week, and there is a pathway, I think, to agreement, at least between council, so that is part of what we're working on. Part of that is details or changes to the care plan.
Okay, and are those stipulated changes that are part of the universal agreement?
Yes, so, sorry, if I can.
Maybe I'm just interrupting you too much. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Mr. Hughes.
I tend to get flustered, and I apologize, Your Honor. But one of the things that we have agreed to do is to discuss or get information from a special needs trust attorney as to whether or not it's appropriate for that type of document in this situation.
Okay,
And we had agreed on one attorney when I contacted her, Kristen Tyler. She does not do that anymore. And she referred us to another one, Laura Stupid, who has agreed to discuss with me about that. So she's sending me her list of requested information.
okay.
So that will proceed forward.
Do you have an appointment set up for her, or you're gonna get her the documents?
I'm gonna get her the documents and then discuss with her, A, is it needed, and B, would it be effective?
Okay,
We've heard kind of differing opinions as to whether it's necessary or not. So I'm trying to get one final opinion from the council. We have agreed to have Garrett go to a physical, a checkup with his doctor, Dr. Rainier, including blood work and everything else. That is being scheduled.
okay,
And also have him checked out with a dentist. Those two things are currently being scheduled and should be accomplished shortly. They have asked for a hearing and vision test. I think part of that will be done by Dr. Rainier, but whatever is not done by the dentist and the doctor we will look at getting him in to have him examined that way.
A referral out to a specialist to do the hearing and vision?
Well, I don't know if we need specialists or not, but that's,
Well, I
we'll
mean, I
get
guess maybe
there.
not a specialist, but I don't know that your doctor can check your vision.
No, but he checks, I believe he checks hearing with a standard part of his
Oh, okay.
checkup. If not, at that point, we will be
The
getting the
appropriate
surgery.
referral,
Right.
okay.
Again, with the two emails from Dr. Kinsora, Dr. Brown was requesting 6 additional evaluations, things like that. Dr. Kinsora's feeling it's kind of unnecessary. We agreed between the 4 councils to have him evaluated with a speech therapist. And so we are looking to find one who can tell us whether he can improve in speech, whether a device would help him. And so that part is being done. That is supposed to be done within the next 90 days. Did I get that?
Part of
correct?
Dr. Kinsora's recommendation about improved communication in his last update was not necessarily a speech therapist, but an occupational therapist to give a communication forward. Is that best suited to come from an occupational therapist or a speech therapist counselor?
I think that is the question I need to address. I have not found one yet. I'm looking for speech therapist. I have not found one yet. And I will direct that question to them. The point is, can he communicate? How do we improve his communication?
Okay.
And so if they tell me an occupational therapist would be better, I will go to council and we will find if that's.
With the understanding speech and communication are not necessarily the same.
Right.
Okay.
So, yes. The next thing is we agree that the inventory will be fixed. There were items that we agreed have been left off, including the judgment against Mr. Gottesman, loans to Epic that Mr. Gottesman made and we're trying to recover, as well as the go-kart and shed that were purchased for Garrett. Those things are being added to the inventory, the inventory. One of the issues that this Guardianship compliance office had is that the inventory and the accounting do not line up. The inventory is not the beginning of the accounting, and so I have to figure out how to address that, whether I go back to the date she was appointed and make that the inventory date and then start the accounting that way. I'm still trying to figure out how to
Right,
comply
so
with it.
just because, I don't need you to satisfy compliance. I
Okay,
need you to satisfy me.
right,
Okay, so compliance will, one of their red flags will be if an accounting doesn't match an inventory. We're asking for an inventory as of right now today. Is that correct, Ms. Brickfield, Ms. Goldsmith?
I
The
think
inventory
that
as-
that is accurate.
Okay, so it's necessarily not going to equal what the accountings were previously. So I want a snapshot of what's going on right now.
okay,
I understand that compliance is gonna say, this inventory doesn't match up with an accounting from 5 years ago. That's
Okay.
fine with me. I
okay,
need a snapshot and an accurate inventory, as close as we can get, of right this moment.
and so these items that we discussed are gonna be added to that
Okay.
inventory.
And when can I expect that amended inventory to be filed?
I should have that shortly, within 2 weeks easy.
Okay.
Without having to go back and backtrack and do that, and you're shortening the time I can get that done, yes. So we have to add the personal property that is discussed there. There's also a question or issues regarding the one main loan. I don't know if that's inventory or accounting, but I am getting information on that directly from the companies on that. So subpoenas were issued, we're trying to get that information. I want to, again, on the accounting, we have to
Can I
address.
ask a question just so
Yes,
that I understand better?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have the information on the loan? You
It's-
said the one main loan.
Yes, and so
Okay.
I received information from my client. She gave me sheets of papers with loan numbers and everything else.
From a bank?
It was actually Household Finance that originally did the loan,
Okay.
according to what I understand. That has turned over to One Main, which is actually a collection agency. And so I have subpoenaed them to find out what they're collecting on, what's the judgment, what's the
Your
loan.
client doesn't know?
She was thinking it was a loan, and so that's why I'm getting the information directly from the companies, is to get that straightened out without having any questions.
Approximately, to your, and I know you may not understand right now, about how much are we talking about?
According to the paperwork I saw, the last sheet I had was about a year ago, if I
Okay.
remember correctly, it was about $14,000.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so that's what's outstanding, and if it's a collection agency on a judgment from years ago, I'm gonna worry whether or not we try to pay it or not. So I want the full information before I lay that fully out.
I understand, okay.
And then we also discussed, obviously, fixing the budget. There are questions about details of how the budget was put together. And one of the things we addressed is just making a household budget, but justifying every expense in it. And so I am going through to correct that. That should be done within 30 to 45 days.
Okay,
So we have a pathway to get toward correcting a majority of these issues. I don't think we can solve them all, but we were cooperative with each other. I think I have a way to address a lot of it, and so that's what I am attempting to do.
okay, all right. Council, is that an accurate description of our, where we're at right now? Does that leave, I'm hearing about a pathway forward, which I like, but does that resolve the ultimate issues here?
I would say it does not. It gets us down a pathway. There's a lot of other issues involving the assets, in part that if historically these assets have been used, if Garrett's assets have been used like a household budget, then Garrett really should have ownership in items, including the double-wide trailer that was probably purchased with his money.
So some of these conversations we can't even have until we have the inventory and accurate accounting. Because
Right,
we
so these
still
are all things. this is
continue to
pathway.
swirl
Right.
about what if, and we need the information from you so that we can have a discussion that is fruitful.
Correct.
Because we keep having the same discussion.
Right, so we're trying to get, to get the information, and we're, Mr. Hughes has advised us that he's working on getting us this information. So we can see whether the numbers we're getting are, truly just for Garrett, or as we've discussed, a household budget, how long this has been in place, what truly the spending is, what truly his needs are, and then determining what is not necessarily limiting us to the history of what has been spent, but making sure that he's getting adequate assistance, and whether that's occupational therapy, speech therapy, getting appropriate devices, spending money for things that he needs. It may be that it comes back and monies need to be spent, so there's use of an appropriate safe vehicle to make sure he can get to these appointments as part of a budget. Maybe these types of things all have to be considered, but we really need to go back and figure out what does he need, what does he have, and how are we gonna get those needs met, to provide for him.
Council, Mr. Berchtold, I didn't hear from legal aid yet. Shall we set another status check, which I hate to do, for 45 days for all of these things to be done so that we can have this conversation? Because you told me 3 weeks for the first and 30 to 45 days
I think
for the
that
second.
we were talking 90 for, which part was it, the speech therapist and
The medical.
the medical? So we were talking 90 for that, get him in to see the doctors within 30 to 45 days, and then have those records available for us. I do think something in the future has to be out there, but I do see, in my mind, we had a very fruitful discussion and moving this forward,
I
so.
feel like I need to hold your, I hate to
I
have
hold
you
my
all
feet
come
to the
in,
fire,
but I need to
absolutely.
hold your feet to the fire, Mr. Hughes.
Absolutely, I understand that.
Commissioner Berchtold?
Well, do you wanna, just a few things. One is that the medical checkups and whatever that are gonna happen are not supposed to be simply checkups. They're supposed to be full examinations and full evaluations with care plans.
Oh, okay, so let's talk about his regular, what he described with his treating physician as a physical checkup. What would you just describe that as?
Well, we anticipated that what it was going to be a full checkup, including labs, including an analysis of his history, whether or not he has had TIAs, whether he needs referrals to other therapists, and a report that would be shared among council and provided to the coordinating camera, so that we could see what the treatment plan is. Similarly with the dentist, we were thinking, for example, that it's not simply going in and we're gonna clean your teeth.
Well, that was my question, is it the 6-month cleaning,
No,
or
it better be it's
x-rays?
x-rays and a care plan.
Okay,
That's what we all anticipated. So I think a 45-day checkup, to come back to your question, might be appropriate to make sure we're on track to have these results by 90 days.
okay, Mr. Berchtold, is that your understanding of what these physical exams were?
Correct, Your Honor, yes. So I think 45 days to put the care plan together is appropriate. The care plan isn't really dependent on the results of the physical. The care plan is, he's going to have a physical, but 90 days to get all that done, I think is appropriate.
Okay, and so what I would expect, so that everyone's clear, out of the physical from his family physician is that lab work, and a full physical, and a plan. That plan might very well indicate that he is to return each year for an annual physical with his treating physician. That he is to, if he has a neurological issue, that he follow up with the neurologist, that he take his medication as prescribed, that he see his dentist and receive a dental cleaning every 6 months or quarterly, depending on the professional. This is the information that I expect to see in this report, written down on a piece of paper. Okay, there might be other things in addition to that, but that's what I would expect at a minimum. So that care plan needs to have a plan, not we're gonna wait for the lab results and see what the lab results are and then I'm gonna do more. No, at a minimum, we're gonna do X, Y, Z, all right? If the lab reports come back and creates another problem, well then we'll have another course of action and another referral.
And just 2 items to add on to that. One of the issues that was addressed and has been brought up by the Guardian is that prostate issue. So we make sure that if it needs to be an appropriate referral to a urologist or someone to address any kind of prostate problems, similar to the allegations that he's had TIAs, there should be those appropriate referrals and discussions from the primary care physician.
Sure, absolutely.
Additionally, we spoke with Mr. Hughes at the meeting about scheduling visitation with my clients, and Mr. Hughes agreed that the pickup place could be his office, the pickup and drop off could be
Okay.
his office. So
Very
we do need
gracious.
to get the details
Your
for
Honor,
when and how that can occur.
I have not yet had that discussion with my client. We've been discussing medical issues since last week. So that is one of the things I do wish to address with her, but I don't have a plan at this point.
And Your Honor, I'm exceptionally disappointed because we had this meeting in preparation for this hearing, and that was something that was addressed at that meeting.
Well,
And so that really does need to be addressed. My clients have not had meaningful visitation in almost 2 years. They've been given 2 opportunities, one in the courthouse and one at a library, and that's just woefully insufficient.
again, Your Honor, we've had that meeting last week. I've been addressing a lot of issues with my client. I haven't covered them all. And I will, there are other things that we discussed in that meeting that I have not fully addressed with her yet either. I'm trying to get one thing done and several things done. And so it is something I intend to discuss with them again shortly, but I don't have a plan right now.
You want me to take a break so you can discuss that?
Yes.
Your Honor, I think that's very important.
I-
I suggest
I mean,
that occur.
because here's the other option, you're gonna come back tomorrow or next week. I mean, I set up and scheduled this hearing
Right,
because you scheduled the meet and confer ahead of time so that you could be here and present that plan to me. I didn't set it the day after, I didn't set it the same day.
right.
Let me give you some time, I'll take a break.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All rise.
Okay, why don't you give me the statute? I'm not putting up with any of your crap here today.
Don't unpack. That's not what today's hearing's for.
The likely result of that is you will be remanded into custody.
Counsel, your appearances for the record.
The court has a few comments before we begin.
We are on the record in the matter, case D-505.
You guys either agree or I order.
We're back on the record in the Dosch matter. Counsel, did you have an opportunity to speak with your client?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did we work out something?
No.
Oh, everybody can have a seat.
Potentially.
Potentially we worked out something. Okay, what's the potential, Mr. Berchtold?
So we would like to start off the process relatively slow. Travis
Okay.
and Garrett haven't spent significant time with each other for about 15 years. So we were thinking Skype at the library once a week
Okay,
to, at least initially.
can I ask you about that? So they don't have internet at home?
They do not have internet connection
Okay.
at home, is that correct?
Right now, but we can get it.
Okay, do they have, let me ask, because I might not be the IT queen of the world here, but, does one of their phones have FaceTime? So you don't have to have internet at home, right? You can just use your phone.
Do you have cell service that can FaceTime?
Yeah, but I think Skype would be better.
We were thinking, Your Honor, because the library is just about, a couple miles, 1 mile, 2 miles
Couple
from your
acres.
house. And they can go there, scheduled Tuesday at 5 or whatever the appropriate time is, and have him sit and talk with his brother.
Okay,
So-
it seems like it would be easier to me just to take your old phone and hold it up and do it on your own couch. I
Well-
know he likes to walk, he can walk around.
Yes, I know that one of their concerns was to have him discussing with his brother rather than having Rain there, so.
Oh.
They wanted to, I know there's that relationship, they want to bond as brothers, so
Okay.
we're proposing that,
Skype once a week for a little bit, and then what?
And then moving into in-person visits. I think Mr. Hughes has made his office available. We could maybe even start there in his office.
I'm sure it's a lovely office, but I wouldn't want to meet with anybody in Mr. Hughes' office.
Just as a meeting place,
Oh,
just as a
okay.
meeting place. And then maybe they could go out to lunch or an hour
we're
or
gonna give him a
whatever.
chance, we're gonna give him a chance.
Okay, okay, so that's just like kind of the pickup or meeting spot?
Yes, yes, yes.
Meeting spot, okay, all right. And how long did we anticipate the Skype 1 time per week to last, and then those in-person meetings 1 time per week to last, or what were we thinking?
I was thinking
Is
Garrett
this
would
the
control
conversation?
that.
I thought we had this conversation last week.
No.
Oh.
We haven't had the conversation with anybody. I would submit to you that they need to have in-person communications, and I would also submit to you that it's my preference that you actually have this conversation potentially back in your chambers, bringing Travis and Garrett together and bring Mr. Berchtold with, because that's his attorney, and maybe you could have this conversation alone with the two twins and with Garrett's attorney in your chambers to see whether Skype is more appropriate or in person's more appropriate. I think for them to have a meaningful relationship, my client really wants to have the opportunity to take him out to lunch, to take him to a ball game, to go see the Aviators, to, possibly go on a hike at Red Rock, walking around and doing the things, that they have in common and spending more time in a meaningful manner. Certainly not just sitting in Mr. Hughes' conference room or having a communication with him.
Probably a lovely conference room. but
I'm sure it's
No, I'm
fabulous.
sure. So, Mr. Berchtold,
And we're not opposing that. All we're saying is we'd like to gradually move into that. That's all we're saying.
My client would really like Garrett to be able to express his opinion here, because I think we don't want to force a relationship on him that he doesn't want. So at this point, I have no problem if you would like to take the two twins back with Mr. Berchtold and have Garrett say what he wants to say, whatever that might be. He can shake his head yes and no. He knows what he wants to do. And he was doing that with us in the hallway. So I don't want to tell you what I think his opinion is. I know that this probably should move slower than faster. They've been separate and apart for years. There is problems in relationships, and so I don't want to force him. I was thinking Skype, because if Garrett doesn't want to do it, it'll be obvious and the conversation ends. And that I would assume would get longer the closer the brothers get back together. They're brothers, they're twins. They have a relationship. It may take some time to repair, but I think Garrett should control that.
This has been an ongoing issue, obviously, in this case for some time, Your Honor. I honestly do not know. Garrett has never expressed to me that he does not want to see Travis. So I can lodge no objection to the idea of visitation. All I can say is it's been a long time since they've spent any time together, so my preference would be to move it slowly.
okay, so I think, first, I appreciate Ms. Goldsmith's request that I meet with the brothers independently with Mr. Berchtold. I am concerned and because although I'm the judge of making a lot of decisions, I am not an occupational therapist or neuropsychologist or a communication specialist. And I do not have the tools necessary to effectively communicate with Garrett in a way that allows him the ability to successfully get across to me all of the information he needs to tell me. However, what I'm not hearing is an objection to visitation, okay? So it seems that everybody is on board with visitation. Mr. Berchtold has no objection to visitation. I am happy to transition, and I think that council knows that, and that is my preference. That what we need is consistency, in this case, a visitation, right? And we start a pattern and a calendar and momentum towards visitation. Ultimately, that visitation schedule in the months and years to come may look wholly different than a visitation schedule I would order for right now, okay? And that is certainly our hope as we progress. I can't order a visitation schedule today that is one size fits all and perfect for you 3 months from now, 3 years from now. What I can do is order a temporary visitation schedule that I will revisit. I am going to caution you. I am understanding that my background is from the family court, where all I do is craft creative visitation schedules. So, although I may not be the queen of IT, I might be the queen of visitation schedules. So what I expect is, just what I said, consistency. That every visitation I order happens, okay? That you are not late, that you are on time. What I do expect is that life will get in the way. Somebody will get sick, a car will break down, the internet connection will fail, right? Absolutely inevitable, and I can predict that will happen all of the time. But we don't get sick for every visit, your car doesn't break down every single time, the internet connection doesn't fail every single time. So, I would like to order every single week between now and the next time that we see each other, which is 45 days, 6 weeks, 6 Skype sessions. I'm happy for those. If your preference is for those to be at the library, that means to me that you will get him to the library, that he will be there without fail, and that the Skype sessions will take place. Council, before you leave today, you'll exchange information so we know, Ms. Goldsmith, at what number your client would like to be reached at, or if you need to set up a Skype account. If you don't have one, that information be exchanged with, before Friday at 5. Today is Wednesday, so before Friday at 5, that information be exchanged and CC all council so that we have that information. I expect for the depth and length of the Skype visits to be developmentally appropriate for Garrett. What that means to me is this. He may not have, the very first time, an hour and a half conversation with you. And those expectations are reasonable. However, his communication style is not standard, but as his attorneys and counsel and mom has said all along, that he knows exactly what he wants and he's telling us and he's taking it in, okay? So that means that you might have a one-sided conversation. That's totally okay with me, right? Because it's time, right? And it's good time. And what I'm looking for, and in 45 days I will be looking for, that it happen. And counsel, you can get me that Skype log, and it will show when you signed in and signed off, and how long those were, and I'd like to see them. I don't think that it is ultimately the best type of visitation given the circumstances. So it is a likely court outcome that after 45 days that this not continue. I do want one in-person visit between now and that 45 days. So let's pick the date, okay, and set that up, in addition to those weekly Skypes. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I don't think that Garrett gets the most out of Skype visits. I think he would get more out of in-person visits, okay? And these visits are for his benefit, okay? And, you know, you may wanna see him on Skype, and that's great for you. And he may really enjoy seeing you, but I think he would get more out of seeing you in person, okay? Having a shared experience, as Ms. Goldsmith explained, not just a visitation staring at each other across the table from each other at Applebee's, but going to the baseball game, going on a hike, a shared experience of doing would benefit Garrett much more than, well, I don't know, Applebee's is really good too, so. Counsel, what day of the week works best for your client? Mr. Hughes?
You can drive in any day of the week, pretty much, right? During the weekday. No, it'd be one time, between now and when we come back. It would just be one visit, come back.
We were gonna do Skype.
Yes.
And you haven't let Garrett talk yet
No.
to the judge in the courtroom.
Ma'am.
Garrett wants to do it in the courtroom.
I understand that, okay? At this point, is it weekdays you can drive into town one time, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can do it on a weekday, yes, Your Honor.
What's your client's work schedule, counsel? What day works best for him?
Weekends work best for him because of his work schedule.
Okay.
He works Monday through Friday
Okay.
and regular working hours, so it would be preferable if the
A Saturday?
one-time visitation would be a Saturday, so then you can, you know, take him on a hike or take him to a ball game or do something like that, and it wouldn't have to be late in the evening like after
No,
work.
no,
so it would
certainly,
be better.
okay. So let's pick a date, and then I'm gonna have council, I'm gonna charge you with figuring out the details of that day. Now, not Saturday the 8th, because that's, right around the corner. What about over, the weekend after the 3-day holiday? That's Saturday the 22nd. Does that work? That's not President's Day weekend, that's the weekend after. Okay.
That would work for our.
All right, so then I'm gonna leave it to council about the times and all of that, because I wanna accommodate everybody. I don't want anybody driving late at night or anything like that. We're gonna have reasonableness. All right, now, Mom, I heard you say that, Garrett wanted to talk to me?
Yes.
He certainly can. Mr. Berchtold, did your client wanna speak?
Do you want to say something?
You talked to her once before.
Mr. Berchtold, do you want me to come down there? Is that preferable?
No, I think he's.
Okay. Hey, Garrett. That is a heck of a belt buckle, buddy. I love that. That's pretty cool. Remember, I'm Linda. Do you have anything you want to tell me today?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good?
He doesn't agree with us.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate you. Thanks for sharing that with me. Council. So we have Saturday the 22nd. You're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on the Skype every week. I'm gonna wanna know what happened at the visits and how that Skype went. I just want it to be consistent. I want there to be no problems. We kinda gotta forge ahead a new path, right? We talked about that a little bit. And a new pattern of making some of this stuff happen. And we can do that. We have a lot of really great lawyers in this room, and there's no reason that we can't do that. Now, before we can have, and I feel like I've been having the same conversation for months and months and months, before we can have a conversation and actually argue about the accounting and get to the place where we can find a need for an evidentiary hearing if we need to, or not, I need to have the numbers. I need to have the information. I'm gonna tell you it concerns me that we don't have the information at our fingertips about the loan, and that we have to see a subpoena them. That might indicate that somebody is unable to manage their finances if they do not have the ability to lay their hands on the documents for a loan, or obtain quickly, as the account holder, those documents. The longer and longer we go on, without these documents, it puts these lawyers in a very difficult spot. What I would expect is if we do not have these documents at the next hearing, for the lawyers to suggest that I just infer the worst. Because we've had the opportunity to obtain the documents, to seek out the documents, to put the documents together. These are documents you should have custody and control over. These are your own accounts. These are Garrett's accounts. You are the guardian. It is your responsibility. You are charged with the management of these accounts. I can understand how you might not have 1 month statement, and you can print that online as soon as you sign in, or make a call to the bank and get that information. So it concerns me. It really does. The farther, and Mr. Hughes, I know you're late to the case, but the farther and farther along we get, you're not so late anymore. And my worry grows and grows and grows. We have a few small, which I really think are common sense resolutions here that you made from your large meet and confer. These are not land breakers, like landmines here. Really, it is a shock to you all that I would order a physical examination and a dental examination? No, it's not. You guys, absolutely, every single one of you knew that I would order that. So this is really isn't a stipulation. Like, that, really? I mean, right? Like, that's not even to the bigger evaluations, like the speech therapist at a minimum, right? And that speech therapist is gonna say we need an occupational therapist, right? So I am worried we're not as far as I had hoped. These aren't the big things. These are some really little things. That is common sense approach that, quite frankly, any of your receptionists would have told you that I would have ordered, right? I mean, come on. So, I am gonna get on to you. I really want in 45 days, some more documents, Mr. Hughes. I gotta have them, okay? Let me explain again what could happen. The statute requires, if I see any removal of monies, the statute of Garrett's money by the Guardian, the statute requires me to double. So every dollar that was taken from Garrett, I am required to give him back 2 from the Guardian. Not from me, not from Mr. Hughes, not from Mr. Berchtold, from the Guardian. For I may, if the lawyers argue, if Ms. Brickfield and Ms. Goldsmith argue that I should triple the damages, that means for every dollar that was taken from Garrett, I may, if they make a good argument, order $3 be returned to him. I may remove the Guardian. I may hold the Guardian contempt. Fines and jail time might be associated with that. There's a lot of things that could happen. This isn't a joke. This is real life, really serious. I'm concerned about Garrett. I like him a lot. He's very important to me. Okay? I want the very best for him. We have some really amazing lawyers in this room working for Garrett. I need these documents. If, at the next hearing, I do not have the documents, this is the last continuance, then I appoint this forensic specialist, and we're just done gathering documents from the Guardian. I'll get the documents through the Supreme Court forensic specialist, and I'll rely on their accounting. And then I'll hear your motion for removal of the Guardian and successor SB 20 Guardian at that time. We can't do this anymore. I've given so much time, okay? I was hopeful that we would have a larger resolution, but I understand that perhaps that conversation can't take place until we have all these documents. Anything else?
Return date?
45 days?
March 25th, 1:30 p.m.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, you know what, I'll see you in the hall, all of counsel in the hallway just for a moment.
She wants to go ahead?
Yeah.